did you even rope me into this? Because he roped me into this. Well, him over there, he roped me into this. Well, he roped me into this. Well, what about me? He roped me into this. Well, that one over there roped me into this. Well, he roped me into this.
What is this? So, I guess we have to go over this. We know at the start of this week we have gotten a few new things that we started talking about, like the raid being unlocked in Mythic, the start of the first progression, the unlocking of Mythic Plus, which we said we will talk about in a few days. But there's also something else to point out, unfortunately. I know what you want to point out. Izen, you seem pretty cold right now. Why don't you close the window that is open over there? Well, the answer is no. I need it open for personal reasons. Now, what we instead have to point out is that alongside the raid being unlocked in its full version, there was also, of course, the cinematic. The end, I guess we can call it the end expansion cinematic at this point, considering there's not going to be any other huge patches. We know there's going to be a 9.2.5. Don't forget the whole Alliance Horde cross-faction thing that's going to happen. But in terms of major content, this should be the end. So this trailer, this cinematic, this cutscene should also be the end of the story for this expansion. And what is there to talk about is just how depressing it all was. It started to raise the question at whether or not the jailer was the worst of the villains that we have encountered so far. In terms of end expansion villains, you know, big bads behind everything. I went all the way back to Vanilla, even though Vanilla itself didn't have too much of a story. And then from then onwards, and I struggled to find a worse enemy than the jailer in each of the expansions. Yes, Worlds of Draenor was kind of scuffed, but they used the Burning Legion as a crutch. The Burning Legion is pretty cool. So when I look at all the other villains, I don't see anything worse than the jailer at the moment. I'm sure Blizzard has the talent to outdo themselves and come out with something even worse than what we have got in this expansion in terms of big bad, but this cinematic was just so bad. From all points, even, you know, besides the funny situation of the jailer essentially getting patronized and scolded by the rest of the Covenant leaders, right? That was pretty sad. But the more important thing is what he said at the end, which is giving me chills down my spine. Not the right kind of chills either. The threatened, fearful, worried type of chills. Because what we said in the trailer right at the end was, you preserve that which is doomed. A cosmos divided will not survive what is to come. So, I just went over the speculations for the next expansion, the hopes of the future, hoping that Blizzard would finally settle back down into something less of a gigantic, massive scale. You know, back to more mundane threats, less big, less wide, a little bit more perhaps self-insulated within a single region, a single continent even, and not just some mega villain who wants to destroy everything. And yet this guy, right as he gets out of the story for good, he leaves behind a menacing, ominous prophecy about surviving what is to come. This of course gives you the hint that maybe something even bigger is out to get us, to get everything, which is exactly what we didn't want to hear. We did not want to hear that the conflict was going to be raised even higher than this, that the jailer wasn't even the tipping point of how much Blizzard can scale the powers up in terms of threat, in terms of intergalactic enemies that are gonna come for us. So in between railing on this terrible story of this expansion, we have to stop for a second and mention the lore. I know. I'm not going to bore you too much with lore. You don't have to be here, attend this lesson and take notes about the lore. I'm gonna make it quick. So the quick thing I want to tell you is that back when 9.1 was coming out and Tazavesh was being introduced, we also had a list of lore books, lore pages being introduced in the game. Now, nobody cared about those because they were literally just pages of a book. There was nothing else attached to it. There was nothing else. There was no cutscene. There was no other type of indication about what this could be, but they were in the game, okay? These were the reports by Al-Ferim, the one who was declared an heretic from Cartel Al. He was basically on the run, and he was hypothesizing a few interesting things towards what we now see at the end of this expansion, with the jailer possibly heralding the arrival of a bigger threat. And amongst the things he's pointing out is that he's basically saying that the first ones were the original creators of the universe who then arranged everything else, including realms like ours, like Azeroth, like the normal plane of existence, which was supposedly existing only to feed their realm with anima, with souls, basically with power, to power them up. One of the things he's saying across all of these findings and theories is that there are different forces vying for power. He's wondering whether or not the mortal plane, so the plane that powers up everything with anima and with souls, what if this plane, this mortal plane, is going to be challenged by the forces, the great 6 or 7, he's not sure, great forces of the universe, vying control to take a hold of this plane of existence because of how much power it has, because of how much the mortal souls can give to these beings. This was, discarded because it didn't really mean much at the time, and it still doesn't. It's still just speculations, but it was, it was worrying, it was heralding a possible future battle for this plane of existence. Now, at the time, that was just some little lore snippet that didn't really mean too much. But now that we have the cinematic of this guy losing and pointing out that what he was trying to do, yes, the classic 180, the bad guy was actually the good guy all along. He's saying that he was essentially trying to reorganize the universe, put it all together under one banner just so we could survive what is to come. Now, I doubt something that could threaten the universe is going to be about Murlocs or Razorfans or Gnolls, unfortunately. I also doubt it's going to be coming from a single planet either. So probably what he meant by what is to come is some cosmic threat, intergalactic, beyond our comprehension type of enemy. What a surprise. The most logical assumption at this moment, given what we know, is the Void Lords. As we know, the Void Lords live, are they even alive? I guess exist in a different dimension, and they have been trying to break through inside our plane of existence. They have been using the Old Gods, for example, to try to harness the Titan souls into the planets and then corrupt the Titans into void corrupted Titans as a way to break the fabric of reality and break into this plane of existence, etc., etc. So they are, at the moment, the most likely candidates for being the big bad. Many expansions people have assumed or guessed that the Void Lords were going to be the big bad, and it's never happened. Maybe this time it's the time it's gonna happen. That being said, we have to go back to the absolute state of this guy. We knew nothing about the jailer before Shadowlands. We knew very little about the Shadowlands as well. So we were quickly told that the jailer basically tried to do something bad, an oopsie, and the rest of the leaders in the Shadowlands essentially banished him to be the keeper of the evil souls. Basically like the devil, right? The devil and hell. That's how it was. And then we started getting ominous threats and even pleas of innocence from the jailer himself, saying that he was betrayed, that he had a plan that was going to work if only those meddlers didn't interfere, and even down to his defeat. Even down to his last moment, he's being cryptic and enigmatic. Why didn't you sit down around the table with the rest of your buddies and clearly explain exactly what you wanted to do? And clearly explained exactly what was the threat, rather than saying, you know what, the best way to explain to them is to just invade every realm, everywhere, try to kill everyone and take control of them forcefully. This way they are going to listen to me. Of course, this story gets an even worse rap because it has been hyped up by the developers themselves, right? The culmination of the story that has started since Warcraft, the tying up of all the threads of different expansions up to this point, and then you see the end cinematic, and you wonder what type of end this is. I am just distraught at the moment. I was very high on copium and even an abundant dose above the daily recommended limit of hopium for the next expansion in terms of the story. I was really buying into this coming back to lesser threats, coming back to our homely continent and our homely planet, for once not having to deal with this space, otherworldly type of enemies, ethereal beings and whatnot. So this cinematic cut my legs. I'm still, opium is still running in my veins, so I am still hoping that this type of word of advice from the jailer were just some foretelling of a far away expansion. Okay, not the nearest one. Okay, bring along your cosmic threat, but in like 2028. Okay. Then in 2028 we will be able to say, guys, remember the cinematic from that terrible end boss? He said it was going to happen. I'm okay with that. If you give us 5 to 6 years before this happen, it's all good. But please, for the next expansion, no more, okay? The next expansion, we want something a little bit more laid back. Do not try to one-up what we just had. We literally just went into a realm which we discovered was created by the gods. No. Apparently the titans of the pantheon of our mortal plane are not the gods. They are basically the butlers of the first ones, who are the real gods, who were the ones who created everything. And now we just had to deal with a bad guy who wanted to take control of their forge of creation, to reshape the entire universe. And we stopped him at the end. I think this is enough of a high stake for a while. I don't like to go even higher than this, please. At least for the next expansion, okay? At least for just a few patches, right? Just let us deal with some random dudes, some normal average guys. Just bring about the continent of the ogres, okay? We got a snippet in Warlords with Heimol. We know there is a continent the ogres are in. Just give us an ogre-based expansion, okay? It's gonna be cool. You know what? I'm even willing to go back to what we have been missing at this point, which is a troll reboot, okay? Back in the day, people were joking about Blizzard. Hey look, it's Zul'Gurub. Hey look, it's Zulaman. Hey look, it's Zul'Gurub 2.0. It's Zulaman 2.0. Hey look, it's Zandalar. You know what? I'm fine with more trolls, if that means a more laid-back scale of threat, okay? I'm even willing to go back to trolls. That's how desperate I am to not see the next expansion cinematic being launched on April 19th and see some gigantic enemy larger than a planet, Sargeras 2.0, threatening to destroy everything. Please, enough, okay? This was the rant for today, for Friday. I didn't really want to do this. I was hoping I didn't have to do this based on what was going to be revealed with the release of Mythic Raid, but that's the cinematic we had. So that's what we have to talk about. This terrible villain, honestly, for this expansion. You know what? I'm gonna leave you with a question I just got. Wouldn't have been cooler if we ended in the Shadowlands and the big bad was Denatrius? You know, planning to take over the other covenants, have some civil war between covenants, perhaps keeping it on the edge. Maybe keeping it a little bit more morally grey for once, whether or not Denatrius was right? Maybe it turned out that the Archon and the Primus were kind of somewhat shady, so you weren't quite sure whether or not they were nice, and the entire expansion revolved around that. This faction conflict, this Cold War, maybe between covenants. Wouldn't have it been cooler? Wouldn't have it been brought players closer to the theme of the story, because they were also choosing the covenants to represent, right? They were making them side with one of the factions, maybe, instead of what we got. I don't know. I think that would have been better. I think Denatrius himself is a much cooler villain than the Jailer, for example. Even without the need of creating this massive scale of threat, I think it would have been a just fine enemy for this expansion. So that's I decided just now that is the question I'm going to leave you for today. Your words, please keep it somewhat civil in the comments about this expansion's end game villain. Just how disappointed are you in the Jailer? Perhaps there are some of you who actually enjoyed it. I can't swear, honestly, because I'm not sure, but I'm gonna do my best to direct my viewer base not to insult you too much if you're one of the people who actually did unironically enjoy the Jailer as the enemy. Everyone has his taste. I'm not gonna be here to judge, at the very least not in front of a camera. I will judge you, of course, later on if you like the Jailer, but still, to each their own. For this Friday and this start of the weekend, this is the question I'm gonna leave you with. This was the daily video about this horrible closure of the story of Shadowlands. So thank you guys as always for watching the video and for helping to support the channel. You can do more by liking and commenting down below on the video, as well as of course subscribing to the channel. Obviously, given the theme of the video, the subscription button is going to be open only to the non-jailer enjoyers. Small scale threat enjoyers are welcome as well to subscribe for today. Just go away with these intergalactic threats for once, please. Of course, you can also follow me up on Twitter over here, and you can also support me on Patreon over here, which will give you access to my Discord channel as well. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, I don't know, man. I'm still perturbed by this. I'm still shocked. What was the writing team thinking? Even Sylvanas kept as the end enemy would have been cooler than this. I just don't get it.